look at your CFU worksheet, chapter 1.7. On this worksheet here, we're doing the last type of graphing that we want to take a look at with quantitative data, and that is dealing with box plots. So we're dealing with the 5-number summary and how to graph that and represent it. So, number 1, acing the first test. Here are the scores of Mrs. Liao's students on their first statistics test. So here you have, looks like about 30 scores. In A it says, make a box plot of this data by hand. Be sure to check for outliers. So you want to sketch it by hand. It does ask you to check for outliers. Here's where the technology is going to really help us save a little bit of time. So take out your calculators right now, just like I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is enter in all of the data points into list 1. Now I've already done that. So after I get done basically with showing you how to enter it in your list here or where it's located, pause the video and enter in these data points. Okay? So again, what course are we teaching? Statistics. We want to edit a list, so we can go ahead and hit number 1. Notice here I already have my data points entered in. So this is where you want to pause the video, okay, enter in your data points. Alright, now hopefully you came back from the pausing of the video with your data points all entered in here. Once you have them all entered in, go ahead and go second mode, which is quitting, and we've exited it out. Now what we want to do is create a stat plot. So I'm going to go second y equals. If you look here, I actually have a stat plot on. But one of the things you want to make sure is only number 1 is on and the rest of these are off. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select number 1. It's on. Wow, it's sitting on a scatter plot, but really what I want to do is I want to pick this one right here, the modified box plot, because that's going to not only graph my box plot, but it's going to show me potential outliers. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to use my down arrow and make sure that it's highlighted for list 1. Again, list 1, mine's typed in there, but if you go second 1, that's again where your lists are. List 1, list 2, list 3, list 4, list 5. So, but you got to do second so that you get the exact list. So now, a lot of students want to just go ahead and hit graph. I'll hit graph. Whoa, I only got 2 dots to show up. You might get the whole graph. You might only get part of it. You might not even get anything. The thing is, we need to see the whole picture. So, and the thing is, our scale's not set up correctly. So to set your scale anytime you're doing stat plots is if you go zoom and you go number 9, that's actually called zoom stat. It's going to fit all your statistics in the correct window. Now if I take a look at this, I have my actual box plot graph. What you want to do is hit hit the trace button, because the trace button's really nice in that it's going to give you not only all your data points, but it's also going to tell you where all these values are located. So as you can see here, my min was 43. Here's another outlier at 45. Here's a data point at 72. It's not a 5-number summary. Here's Q1, 82. This value is the last data point that's not an outlier. Okay, 82, there's my median. There's my Q3, and there's my max. So now I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to go back to my page here, and I'm going to draw the actual sketch with all my values noted there. Okay? So now, again, I use a number line. My scores were going from 40 all the way to almost 100. So I go 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Again, we're talking test scores. So again, remember I had those 2 scores in the 40s. I had a 43 and a 45, 43 and a 45. Put my 2 outliers there. Then this last score was what? It was like a 72, I believe. And then I have my 87. There's that part of the box. Went up into the 90s all the way up to 98. So I just want to connect that. I got my box plot of test scores. Okay? So B says, how do the students do on Oh, this is kind of funny because it says Mrs. and Mr. So I apologize that I'm changing gender of our teachers. They asked first test. Justify your answers. So if we take a look at it, most students are doing well. Look at this, almost all but 2 got basically a C- or higher, okay? So we want to kind of note about that. Only 2 students really actually failed the exam. And if you take a look at it, here's our median, 50% of the students actually, okay, scored a 87.5 or a B plus or better. So those are kind of some of the things I'm going to talk about. It's not the only thing I could, but it does ask you to, justify your answers with actual accuracy. So we could say most students did very well on the test. 28 of 30 got a score of 72 or higher. So if we're talking our grade curve, a C- or better. While only 2 students failed the exam. About 50% of the students scored higher than a 87.75. Again, that's our median. So overall, yeah, I would definitely say they did very well on that exam. All right, question number 2, income and education level. We like to preach this in as educators. The more education you have, tend to make more money. Well, let's see if some of the data actually supports this. So each March, the Bureau of Labor Statistics compiles the annual demographic supplement to its monthly current population survey. Data on about 71,000 individuals between the ages of 25 and 64 who were employed full-time were collected in one of these surveys. The box plots below compare the distribution of incomes for people with 5 levels of education. This figure is a variation of the box plot idea because large data sets often contain extreme observations. We omitted the individuals in each category with the top and bottom 5%. So because of that, they don't want to have those outliers really skew the data, so they omitted them. Write a brief description on how the distribution of income changes with the highest level of education reach. Give specifics from the graph that support your statement. Well, if we look at the data here, okay, all of these as we go, okay, you do have a little bit, I would say, of skew and miss, distribution skewed to the right, okay. Likewise, if you look at as the education level rises here, goes from lowest to highest, the median, which is a good measurement here, okay, and all these quartiles, okay, and even the 5 points on the box plots, they all are increasing, okay. The width of your interquartile range, okay, also increases, suggesting that the distributions start to become more and more spread out. So we're going to comment, or let me write those all up for you here. So one of the things we notice is all 5 distributions are skewed to the right. That is definitely true. Okay. As your education level rises, rises to the highest, levels, the median, quartiles, and extreme values all increase. The width of the box, which is our interquartile range, and the distances from the extremes. When I'm talking about the extremes, I'm talking the low and high. Maybe that will help you if you don't know what I'm saying about the extremes. Also increase, suggesting that the distributions become more spread out as education levels rise. All right, that's awesome. That ends that worksheet.